Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians!
Recent Tartarians! Recent Tartarians!
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Recent Tartarians! Recent
Несмотренно
Tartarians!
образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, the skin's beautiful.
Baby, when I met you, there was
Tartarians.
peace unknown.
Recent Tartarians!
Что касается энергии нанами, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз. 10 в 74 степени.
Recent Tartarians! Recent Tartarians!
That's it.
Tartarians!
That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.
Recent Tartarians! Recent Tartarians! Recent Tartarians! Tartarians!
Thank you for watching Xirtus. Keep listening. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, please follow and subscribe and share and support. It really helps. Coming up next, Xirtus.
By the way, that's gone. If you didn't record that, that's gone forever. It's gone.
Rav, the Pentagon and the White House Satanists are trying to take away my open source free hardware architecture. Did you hear about Risk 5 and Mark Rubio?
Again?
Dude,
No.
I'm so
tell me about
annoyed.
it.
I'm so annoyed on so many nerdy levels. It's so upsetting. So let's start with this. Risk 5, most important thing, right?
Risk architecture, right?
Risk architecture. We'll go back to the Hackers movie scene that may not have been so ridiculous or dumb after all. And he talks about Risk. Hackers, 1995, Risk scene. Come on. They're like, Risk is going to change everything. Risk is going to change. And it literally is. It's changing everything. But we had Risk back then, and it was like in your clock, you know? It wasn't very impressive yet to have a
Yeah, I think
reduced...
to understand it the easiest way, how much more effective it is. So today, this is the chip that's used, or the architecture that's used in the Apple M1s, right? And in many different smartphones.
Sort of. Yeah, I mean, hold on.
Partially, and in many different smartphone chips. And the original version of this, actually, when it was constructed, at least according to the mythology, they built a very simple calculator and just put it there, and then they realized it's kind of running without external power supply because the architecture appeared to be so power efficient that just from ambient electricity, it could run a simple calculator. And now
The one thing is with Apple is that Apple is using ARM, and ARM is like a it's RISC, like it's a what's it called? ARM stands for some kind of RISC machine, an advanced RISC machine. So this is technically a form of RISC, right? But RISC is not like RISC is like a ancestor to RISC 5, but RISC is not RISC 5. So we start with complex instruction sets, which are really huge, and that's why we think of like x86 architecture that is designed to have just anything happen, but very few things really happen. And so we realize we only need a reduced instruction set. Like only certain things are going to happen, so we should make a chip that only needs to do certain things. And ARM is expensive. So even though it's a great thing and all, it's a British like mind control company, like product. So the British government has a lot to do with it. And the amount of money that goes into ARM, anytime Apple sells anything, they have to give some money back to ARM, right, for using any of their original stuff. So even Apple would benefit by switching to RISC-V, because RISC-V is fully, open standard instruction set. So this is something anybody can build from, right? So this is going to be the biggest thing, and it's from University of California, Berkeley. But as time's gone on, like right now, the main one is Bitmain. Just made these Alibaba has just released these new chips, right? And so China is trying to figure out a way of becoming independent, and so they're making RISC-V chips themselves, because as anybody who learns from that, then they can make more. Someone else can make a chip based on what somebody else learned. And that's how it works in China.
This is like open hardware specific, not only specifications but the designs also, or there's some kind of sharing of information.
Absolutely.
Because of the licensing of it, or just because people finally realized it's better to share your designs and improve upon them, or
both of those things are true. So the thing is, this is a Western idea that the East has latched onto. So we cannot pretend that this is like some sort of communist conspiracy. This is like corporations at the top. We're realizing we're going to be far better off if we have some sort of an architecture that we can work from. In the next year, your Google wearables, your Apple iWatch, all of the lower powered devices are going to move to RISC-V, because they're not going to be worried about power consumption at all ever again. You'll be able, so your watch could run for 7 days instead of 2. All kinds of power lower. As you were saying, the thing could keep running even without anything running it. And if we move to like e-paper, electronic inks, the screen wouldn't even have to recharge itself. So we're getting to a point where RISC-V is going to replace everything. And all of a sudden, Alibaba, has been through a lot. Like what's the guy, Jack Ma, who disappeared? The whole story with Jack Ma, right?
Yes, just let's go into that just before you go on. Let's maybe share this one link, because I think it's something that's not well known enough yet. Here we have this and the other link too. Sure. So because you talk about low energy things, and I was just wondering, because especially if in this case the design is open, so I guess we hopefully know what they're doing. In many cases, of course, designs may be more hidden. So this is a podcast basically where people are being interviewed, but there's a link. If you go on the bottom, it says neutrino-energy.
Yeah.
I think I've shown this before. So this idea of stacking, I think it's carbon layers on top of each other. And then they call it neutrinos. In any case, it appears to work, and at least small devices. So that's where they said they wanted to make their first foray into the real market, not to maybe too much stumble over anyone's toes or tentacles, depending, but just start with a small device where it's not such a big deal. Who knows how much energy it uses. I guess even today a good watch can last a long time, right? And so I was just thinking, if these things could be combined even, and if RISC-V is really low power, then you would actually have a perpetually running device that you don't never need to plug in anymore.
That's literally the idea. So you could have an electronic field that was very potentially low energy, but there is field, any field at all, and then that will.
There is everywhere, right? Almost,
right.
Unless you go into a skiff maybe or whatever.
So in other words, we're gonna get to a point where things are so powerful at such a low usage of power, because it's just constantly running off field. But the problem with that also is right now, the systems that are RISC-V are factors of maybe 100 less powerful. So you can't really compare them to your super powerful computer yet. However, a computer from 10 or 20 years ago is still really amazing, right? Like a computer from 20 years ago is still really amazing. And a computer from 10 years ago is incredible, like compared to how different a computer from 30 years ago and 20 years ago is. So if you have a computer that can game from 2010 or 12, that's about what RISC-V can all of a sudden do out of the box right now. So RISC-V is a lot closer to having it sort of reveal than, you could say, like some other technologies, basically. But what's weird is just what happened with Alibaba, because China is, the government of China, of the PRC likes to control things. So Jack had said publicly, like he did the debate with Elon Musk, and
Yeah,
everyone.
because he appeared and he vanished, and now
Well,
no one knows what's going on with
let's
him, right?
cover.
Can you go through the story a bit?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. So he did the conversation with Elon Musk, and a lot of people said, "Oh, this was a disappointing conversation." And if you listen to it with any perspective at all, it feels like Elon Musk. I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but he entrapped Jack Ma into saying things you're not allowed. One's not allowed to say in China. Right. And for the most part, he didn't. Actually, Jack ended up looking stupid rather than saying things against the government of China. Right. And so people thought he was just a fool for what he didn't say, but also what he did, because he did say too much. And especially after that, he started trying to, behind the scenes, make moves to clean up the government of China through bureaucracy. And very quickly he was stopped and stomped out, right? And so, yeah, we talk about the disappearance and the restructuring of China, not just of Alibaba, because Alibaba owns so many companies, like the biggest company in China. They removed him for 3 months, took not all of his money, but essentially they control his life now. And he's returned now as a teacher, according to Wired magazine. They said he's still alive, and they've seen, look how skinny he is now, and he's teaching again. So yeah, that's what he's allowed to do. So he's no longer in charge of Alibaba anymore. So Alibaba is restructured.
I have to say, I kind of like the more or less transparent reporting on this, because who knows how similar things could happen in different places, but they are just not being reported in that way.
I don't know if I'd say, I wouldn't say it was transparent, like honestly, China did not talk a lot about what they were doing to or why about Jack.
What I mean with transparent, just making it obvious that from a certain point, you can seem as powerful as you would like to seem, but there are higher forces. Rein you in at any point, and just here it's obviously reported that this happened.
Yeah, and I found that that is really interesting from the Western perspective, that they have a social, economic, democratic system. And I don't mean that in a good way or a bad way. I'm just saying that we don't have that. So in our Western system, it's difficult to suppress freedom of enterprise when it reaches a certain level, right? When you get to a certain level, you usually are a corporation. You have like more power, and you're able to make things happen. Of course, there are like checks and balances made by those people, so other people can't do it. So Rockefeller's lead program, carbon tax initiatives, and things like that. But in China, they have an intelligentsia that can overwhelm capitalists. So if you're a capitalist, they can stop you from using their market, because it's not a free market. It's like a people's market. So I find that interesting, because we would never think that. And yet a lot of people would want that here. A lot of people would think, oh, wouldn't that be great if you could just stop Bill Gates or stop Elon Musk or stop Jeff Bezos? And what would that world look like if you could just do that? And well, there it is. Now you can see. And it's essentially not that different, because they tried to do it here and they just almost did it to Sam Altman, right? But because of the ability of stock investors to participate in the decisions, which is even more Marxist, arguably, we were able to keep Sam Altman. So that's a good thing. But what they're gonna do, as of March of earlier this year, and have been doing, is Alibaba will split into 6 units, reshaping Jack Ma's business empire. The way CNN says it different. The way I saw it was, China said Alibaba will split into 6 units in order to manifest glory or something like that. Alibaba 6 to manifest. What was the term they used? To manifest potential. I think it was the thing that they said, to manifest potential. Something like that. I don't know. It was something like that. They were trying to make the spin of the Chinese government, to manifest manifest something, to manifest great growth or something like that. I think it was manifest potential. So, I mean, the Chinese government are going to take all these different companies out of AliExpress. They're going to redistribute them to the state. The state's going to redesign them. One of the most important ones is manufacturing, because China has the Become Independent program. That's where they're putting all of their efforts. And they make it really easy because it doesn't matter how much something costs. Like the government will make it cost less. Instead of corn being subsidized, it'll be semiconductors or semiconductor
It'll be
research.
RISC-V.
Yeah, and so RISC-V is coming fast, and you can buy at this point a RISC-V development computer that can run Linux and play games and port Steam and code exists, everything like that. So Mark Rubio's like, stop, and he wants to ban RISC-V in America.
Seriously?
Yeah, which is just like he doesn't get it, right? Like that's I think because
But
that
who
would.
I mean, I know the name, but what is he famous for even? Or
I don't think
he's
anyone
like
likes him
he's
very
like
much.
some parliament member of Congress or something, right?
Somebody who's paying attention, tell me if anybody likes Mark Rubio, please let me know. I mean, he's a Republican, so like there's got to be somebody out there who by de facto has decided he's cool. I don't
De facto voted for him even though
Yeah,
you
right.
put him on the ballot or whatever.
Just someone tell me, because like I don't really hate Mark Rubio. I'm not hating Mark Rubio, but the idea of, I mean, maybe this is also like an ill-informed move, because in general the idea of trying to be careful about China, that's important too. But no, I would just say the idea of RISC-V, like the benefits of technology always outweigh the risks of disruptive technology.
Here on a, let's say, national quote unquote competition level, to the way that they stage play it, can be quite obvious that they want to protect, I guess, Intel in this case. Because I mean, AMD
Intel is such a. I'd love to comment.
I mean, it's called Intel. I mean, what else?
Yeah, but like Intel doesn't have the future you think it does. Okay, so let's start with Intel's.
I don't believe that either. What I just want to say is that they could still have enough sway to tell them, oh, let's rather not proceed with that.
I think
prevent the inevitable for one more year.
I think Intel desperately needs RISC-V is the other thing. I don't think Intel could last forever as a CISC company. Because
but then just from what you said, someone in the line of command must be retarded because they don't see what you just said. So how could you come about with that idea? Profit motive or what is it?
I mean, I don't know everything about Intel. It could be that Intel secretly has really amazing chip designs that they just can't shrink yet, or something, that were designed for supercomputers that were for the military and they've never released yet, or something. There could be like more I just don't know about Intel. The problem with that hypothesis is that there's no evidence for it. Intel's never shown that they have better technology in the last 10 years, right? So it would be to their advantage to show that they have better technology. And really all that Intel's been showing is that they're able to, they do have a and this is what they've always had, okay? Intel always has had a better manufacturing process. And they really do, and they still do. And I'll grant that. IBM couldn't make x386 architecture at first with the x86 the 380, I think the 381 386. They couldn't build them as fast as they needed for the military. And so Intel was built essentially as a company to manufacture designs from IBM, right? And from IBM also Xerox was spun off because they needed a printer for their computer before they had monitors. A lot of different things happen. But Intel was better at making chips than they were at designing the chips. And so this has just not changed. Like they've been doing the same thing. They've kind of figured out how to design an already existing theoretical design better and better and better, and shrink it smaller and smaller and smaller, and make a more complete print. AMD doesn't really need to do that. They're just, even though it's not quite as perfect, they're able to make a mosaic, right? A mosaic of different chip of wafer. So this piece works, that piece works, and altogether collectively you have more threads and cores. So AMD doesn't need to be
about the chiplet design of the processor and so on, or are you talking about the manufacturing process?
The manufacturing of the
manufacturing.
The manufacturing of the wafer. The manufacturing of the wafer itself. So what you're gonna see here, let me show you like Intel wafer silicon. These things are giant, right? This is a vinyl record looking thing, right? And each one of these has a chip on it. So Intel can print one of these and it's perfect. And it's amazing. It doesn't always get as small It doesn't always get, in certain respects, as many chips on a surface, but there's very little damage to this chip. Okay.
Oh, yeah, and
And
then
then,
just one thing on a side note, because maybe some people that are into computers may be wondering why are some processors more expensive than others. And from what I understand, it's actually that most of the processors created would all be the high spec processors, but then depending on how faulty the production was, some cores can be disabled. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but at some point that was the case.
that's essentially what goes on here. But
Then you have to imagine the upmarking in the price, and it's is a processor expensive or not? What does it really cost to create such a wafer? How much % profit do they even make on it? Especially if we can assume that at least for the military, they produce 10, 20 x more years advanced technology. So then, from that point of view, it should be super cheap to produce whatever they're doing.
It depends on. Honestly, I don't think that's necessarily true. So here's why: if you produce these chips, like I showed you, there's going to be damage a lot of the time because the process to make these things. This is why they have to wear like perfectly clean coats and everything, and the chips don't always come out perfect, and so that's why they end up having to manufacture mosaics of them, and why AMD was able to figure out how to put things together in a way that works better than Intel. Even though Intel was working on making perfect things, they also could only do it at a certain size, right? And so then to shrink it and double the amount of chips every year, there would be problems. So they could maybe do like a test, but it takes like $100 million to build.
Okay,
a new
so you're saying
fabrication
the
process.
wafer size remains the same, and the idea is by progressing through the nanometers, because of that, I get more or less double the amount on one wafer. Is that?
Yes,
is that how it works?
that's essentially Moore's law. So like the idea, yeah, is like you're printing double the resolution, right? So every year I can print double the amount of chips because I can print half the size. The pixels are now there's double the pixels essentially, and you could say like wafer.
Yeah, so back in the 90s, we were at, I don't know, 300 micrometers or something, and current chip designs are at 7 to 5 nanometer. So
there's three 3 nanometer M3 Mac Apple chip. Right?
Oh, they're already at 3 nanometer. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they're. I'm pretty sure, right? Isn't that what they are now? Pretty sure they're 3. Yeah, the 3 nanometer process. Let me just confirm that. 3 nanometer process. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, 3 nanometer process. So 3 nanometer process is really important because once you start to get below 1 nanometer, then that's when you're going to have to start worrying about things like you were talking about, like neutrinos or spacers, and also why we would move away from electricity towards light, towards photonics and everything. But we're just not quite there. So we have another 10 years probably, I would say, before we start to really see consumer products that use photonics instead of just electricity. But that's going to require, I think, standardization, right? So we're going to see RISC-V before we see that. But yeah, 3 nanometer process exists now, and so that is the same thing where it's essentially done the same way a film is made. So you have a chemical layer that removes the entire layer that's a certain light frequency. Like this color is because that was the particular PAR density, and then this PAR density was a different PAR density, right? And we've shown what that looks like here. But if you are able to dial it in and probe just the 400 nanometer or just the 650 nanometer, just the 641 nanometer, maybe just get 651 to 649, like just in between on the other side of that bar, then you're able to wash
and this
away.
determines the depth of what's lasered away, or
right, absolutely. And then how many layers there are, like a 3D printer. So you might have a layer and another layer.
And then afterwards you have to add, let's say, quote unquote, metal to it, or is it done?
Often it's you start with a wafer that has metal and it's got chemicals in it that burn away, right? So when the light hits it, that burns away the material. So this is kind of like, let's look at 7-layer perforation film, because this is a similar chemical process. So first you have a sputtering process where this celluloid is sputtered with this thin layer of the material, and you do that 6 times or 7 times in order to get different chemicals that are reacted to different light. And then when the light hits it, it burns away one layer or another layer depending on the frequency of light, and you
So
have just some silver there. Or
this means if the wafer is properly designed and the whatever CNC machine or however it would be called, and the laser device is set up properly, then I could have completely standardized wafer production and basically have
yeah,
I imagine
but
like I just laser it and then the thing is complete, or I'm stacking more. Because I really don't know how complex how complex the process of the manufacturing of current chips is.
I mean, it's non-trivial. Like you need to wear crazy clothes because you can't have anything touch the thing. You have to be in a separate room
And
usually.
also, what we should discuss here, or I want to ask what your thoughts about this are. I had heard this idea many years ago from a friend, and then recently also from David. I think he also mentioned on shows, and certain other people sometimes talk about this idea or this question, to what extent these new developments are really new developments, or to what extent, I don't know, technology was given, or however you want to call it, and it's just being released and, as you said, then adapted for mass production. But it's not really that some scientists at AMD or Intel come up with some eureka, but at a certain time, I'm not sure how this would work, but with such big structures, you could,
look at this right here, right? So
have
this
a
is
bundle of information.
Here's
Yes?
Here's a picture of film, right? And in that film, you see like hairs and artifacts and grain. So this is the same technology that's making those silicon wafers, and this is why it's so difficult to make a perfect silicon wafer, because organic artifacts occur and it completely destroys hundreds of these chips at once, right? And so that's why it takes a lot of effort to keep it super clean, and also why the chemicals have to be perfectly dialed in, and the color and everything. And so yeah, I mean, this technology's existed for a long time, and they've been using it for chips for a long time. But it started with light tests and with aperture readings and trying to figure out, could we use this to photocopy a design, and then also could we make layers in it. So I mean, could this have existed for a very long time? For sure. And using lenses, could you make them smaller and smaller? But once we knew that, I think once mathematicians and engineers figured that out, that became a path. And so that's why we talk about Moore's law, because they said, okay, well then what we'll do is we'll do this every year. Maybe it'll go faster, but at very least we're going to have deadlines that we'll get this done every year. And by the end of the century, we're going to get to a point where we'll be too close together to get any closer without there being light and electricity literally just next to itself. And so that, I mean, it's not that out of control of a theory, and it doesn't mean you couldn't do it sooner. They weren't saying, oh, we're just going to keep it until we get to that point. Corporations kind of did at a certain point, but not until the 90s. In like the late 90s, they started coming up with quarterly and annual progressions of technology. Before 1999, I mean, you could just like buy a computer and throw it in the trash by the time you got it paid for at the counter, because there's a new computer coming out every second.
Oh, really? It was that fast? Okay. Wow.
In the 90s, it was crazy. In the 90s, just like every moment, there was this computer, that computer, this company, and it wasn't until like CES and the E3s and things like that they started.
So you're suggesting that actually slowed it down. So one new smartphone a year is not so bad, actually. All right. Okay.
They slowed it down. It should be one a year at least, maybe 2 a year, because you want to have a revision version of the product, at least, so that by the time the new chip comes out, there's already revisions done that we've worked on with the old one. So this is why they kind of do like one foot after another. But there's no reason why it has to be that slow. I mean, you could have companies taking higher risk.
Higher risk, yeah. And because the other question, of course, is I would agree that if you have a certain path, you can follow it through, you can do it faster or slower. The other question, of course, would be, are there any, or maybe there have been, competing technologies that for various reasons simply had not been used because they maybe operate on different principles or something?
I love the website for IARPA, high risk, high payoff research. I mean, this is for the most brilliant of naive engineers, because what they do is they get people like, oh, you're really smart. Well, but you can't figure out how to sell that, can you? Oh, well, we're good business people.
Oh, we're gonna
We'll only
learn
take
you.
99% on all the
Well,
licensing. Yeah.
oh, but sure, you gonna learn a lesson, boy. You gonna learn. You gonna learn from us. That's how it feels. I don't trust IARPA that much anymore. But they do great things. I mean, because a lot of great people end up doing projects for them. But I don't know. That's the thing with film, though, is that we will get to a point where you won't need to use film because you'll use electrons to literally like arrange the material the way you want. And maybe we'll get to a point. People talked about in the 90s organic chips, where using biomolecular printers in vegetable matter, you could literally arrange and print chips, and that idea of like growing computer chips, you can do it. Like it would be the best way to do it, because then it could arrange in such a perfectly close way with everything. So we're gonna get to a point where all computers are organic, literally.
But then at least they can start finally rewiring themselves.
Yeah.
Because that for me, with the whole AI talk, this at least would make it somewhat more likely that it could connect to some kind of an intelligence, if at least by itself it has the real capacity to rearrange, just like humans naturally do, right? Rearrange its own composition. That's great. Yeah, that would save a lot of money, I guess. Eventually.
Hopefully
If
not.
you need no more
Hopefully things just grow. Is the idea on the side. Well, computer weeds on the side of the road. And they'll be organic, and they'll be edible. You'll be able to eat them before they go bad. Like, hey, you better eat those computer chips. Like, they're getting stale.
Yeah, right. Well, if the silicium is in a way that's bioabsorbable, it may even be healthy for humans. Yeah, that'd be that would be a fun techno Gaia utopianism you're always talking about.
You got to make everything. Yeah, you got to make everything better. That's the thing. All right, Mark Rubio. I don't know if anyone's got any opinions. Let me know. The only thing I know that I really care now is that he's against Risk 5, and that's a risk to your democracy. Risk 5 for democracy. All right, and Hackers is a great movie. Oh, I did need to say this. I think I said this already, but so the Hackers 56K upgrade, I was like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever, and I was really let down, and I'm really sorry, because I love when people make fan edits. But let me just explain why this made me sad. So, primary objectives: remove or replace, quote, space formulas in space, nonsense used to convey hackers and deep thought. This is a major, problematic no. Replace some of the computer screens that look more like screensavers than actual user interfaces. Now, that's almost okay, but it misses the point of the Mendelbrot math and why, all right, and he's not going to go too far with this. And he wanted to completely redo Computer Room at Ellingson. He wanted to get rid of the cyberpunk tower scenes and all this stuff. So I just want to say that's wrong. That's wrong and bad and a sin. So the Hackers movie is, like I said before, Linus even brought this up, that it was, either they knew nothing or they knew everything about hackers. And I will argue that they knew everything about hacking, and even knew Stellium, his story, right, about being, because you can see even in the movie, the scenes, they're digging through the trash dumpsters for the chips. They're arresting the young boy with the SWAT team. I mean, Hackers knows the true story of what happened to all the hackers. And they even had the lingo down and then tried to make... But here's the thing. They also know most people didn't know about hacking. So they made this movie for people like your mom, or for plebeians who have never seen hacking before. So it's actually the most brilliant movie. Just wanted to reiterate that because that made me sad. Sorry. Do you like Hackers, Raph?
Well, actually, how should I say, some of the coolest people I met, when starting to explore, this was at hacker conferences, actually. I mean, this is many years ago now. But yeah, I met great people that, are creative and so on. And also they had some advantage because at least, with some of those individuals, they had more higher paying jobs, I guess.
Yeah.
So they were some of the first in the Western world and could create things like hacker spaces, which you obviously are familiar about. Even one of your top videos is from a makerspace about actually bioprinting circuits, no?
Yeah,
Just what you talked about right now, or you talked about right now. So that's great. And I think a great model, how to create community spaces, even just to have this idea, then still everyone has their own culture and their own vibe. But as an inspiration, I think it's great. And the whole idea of, hacking things, I believe, at least in the current situation is quite necessary.
Yeah.
succeed and to proceed. Hacking, how you want to say it,
Yeah, 'cause
social
it's not just a
systems,
crime; it's an
hacking.
evolutionary survival trait.
Of
Exactly.
course. Now seeing it in a completely legal fashion, of course. Yeah.
But
Uh,
have you seen the movie Hackers? Have you
I
seen
haven't
it?
actually seen it. I have to watch it.
You're
Yeah,
gonna
I
have to
haven't seen
check
it.
that movie out because it's got a lot. Now that you know Mike and you know like the idea of an American hacker boy being arrested, and I'll just leave it at that. Like you'll have to see the movie and be like, is it possible in any fashion that this story isn't like that they don't owe Mike some money even for
Yeah.
there's a lot going on there. But I mean, obviously Kevin Mitnick and there's other people that were really important too. Like there's other hackers that were going on. But like if you look at the history of everything, it's pretty interesting. And then Signa, what was this about? Did you send this?
Yeah, so
Signa?
yes. So just as we were on the topic of, I guess, big companies and developments, this is I guess, somewhat interesting case. It's a little bit suspicious in terms of Austrian internal politics because they're playing this up and down now all
Benoit,
week.
you're 290s. No, I'm just kidding. I love you. Keep going. And the 90s too. I love them.
So they like to focus on this now, so they don't need to talk about however much money was lost during lockdowns or something. But still, it's an interesting thing because the guy who started this company called Signa Holdings officially started at like 18, 19, 20 years old. René Benko is his name. He was how should I say, remodeling penthouses, let's say, like the rooftop places. This was pretty in. And what I just read from some comments, I didn't research it, but I'm pretty sure it's accurate, that at that point actually this was highly incentivized by the state, and that also there were some kind of arrangements where you could renovate it, and then if you did it in the right way, basically all the people inside the building would more or less pay for it or pay for a large portion of it.
Clever.
But if they didn't know about it, they wouldn't really notice. So that's kind of how it started. Some guy gave him money from whom he learned officially. And then pretty soon, I guess, he became a billionaire. He opened different shopping centers and got pretty cozy with politics. And now after, over 20 years of this happening, he even had a former prime minister on his board, another former minister, and all these kinds of politicians. And it seems, at least, as if this political cloud also enabled him to get bank loans and all kinds of deals. Even there is documentaries from Germany where they basically say it's suspicious because he bought Karstadt. This is probably Americans have no idea about this. Karstadt and KaDeWe. These are like big shopping mall chains or shopping malls in Germany. Not Karstadt, Karstadt. Kar and then Stadt. Yes.
By the way, I mean, Angelina Jolie was like at her best in Hackers, admittedly, but I still think Nicolas Benoit, you would have been a better lead chick in that movie than Angelina Jolie. Then again, a lot of people would, but she did her best. Anyway, Karstadt. So he took the money from this company.
Then he took over, for example, this German company.
He took it over when they
strangely enough, very very quickly afterwards, he got a huge cash injection by the German government.
Of course.
Whereas other people would say there were other companies which were more qualified and so on. They didn't get anything, right? So it's pretty obvious.
But this is a majorly important company. So by stepping into it, they needed that company to exist. Yeah.
And supposedly he was, to save it. But what he did, of course, he was cutting out the nice pieces, selling them off. A year later, basically, dropping all the employees on the floor. Anyhow, one could argue, is this idea of a shopping mall, especially in these times, even smart or profitable or anything? But it's just interesting that you have this obvious interconnection between politicians and companies. And even today, the former prime minister of Austria is sitting on his board, important position. And they are all kind of just pretending like this is completely normal. And once again, it looks like the taxpayers already did pay a lot because of the injections, right? And if there will be insolvencies now, they will pay a lot more because the smart thing he did, we spoke about limited liability. Apparently, he created a construct of even hundreds, if not thousands, of companies. So it's created in a way that he can perfectly, at the very least, evade his personal bankruptcy. And then I'm wondering, like, what? And for many years, this guy was heralded. He had, like, dinner shows every year, and all the important politicians showed up. He was in the important, glossy magazines. This guy is so great and so smart and is so amazing. And what did he actually do? Most likely only used the government schemes that were available and or potentially inspired, let's say, by his actions as well, riding on that wave, getting credit from all sides, and eventually having the taxpayer come up with, all the losses he's incurred now, all the bad business decision. I think just it's a nice case example. And also I'm kind of wondering, even with just one case like this, how much money,
There's totally
how
more,
much
yeah.
how much energy of like a populace is just being sucked away just in a moment, because then we just say, oh, it's too big to fail or whatever, or it failed and we need to pay all of these things.
So the idea though of having like, okay, so Amazon right now, I just saw this, Amazon Minnesota strike. There's a bunch of postal workers that first off, like Amazon had a strike day. Amazon paid a bunch of money to the postal workers to they gave some money saying we want the USPS to deliver, like to prioritize delivering Amazon files around rural states, and like a bunch of people are getting really, really frustrated with this. And so what they want is they want places where people can pick up stuff again, themselves, like stores. And they've been trying to figure that out. And that's one of the reasons why they've been trying to open Sears again, allegedly. They're like, well, we can just keep a bunch of stuff at the Sears, and that's like a Sears Roebuck. So then you won't, if someone needs to buy a freaking clock, like a little cheap clock, why are they going on Amazon to buy their clock? Why can't they go into a Sears to buy a clock? That's what some people are trying to force, because like it would just be cheaper to have a $3 clock at Sears than the $7 to $10 it's going to cost to like ship and handle it. So they're trying to, they want to make that an option again. But I don't know, because I also feel like they have to know people don't want to do that. So what you're gonna build a Sears store for boomers? Is it just so that the last of the people who don't want to use the internet can like choose not to, or is this another kind of example of like we're building these like big box stores for to put money into something? Because like now if you own the building, maybe they're doing this so they can use the last of the money to buy these buildings and refurbish these buildings for their next purpose. Because like all these buildings are amazing, these giant concrete military bunker style Sumerian temples, they're impressive. Sears, freaking Sears. I bought a camera once at Sears because they told me that I could literally skydive with it and smash it, and then they would replace it, and it was true. So I don't know what their deal is. Good job, Sears. I don't know. Starlink triples its internet traffic amid geopolitical tensions. New data from IT security firm Cloudflare shows that Starlink, the satellite internet service that Elon Musk SpaceX, has seen a massive increase in global internet traffic since 2023. According to Cloudflare, here's the growth chart from 2022 to 2023, right? 0 in Brazil to boom, right, by November. And really, I guess you can see like it kind of already started in February, but by March, it's just like it's growth everywhere. So that's cool. Super connected internet. Starlink popularity reflects its dominance in the satellite community sector. Ukraine to Gaza, trail of tension. Use of remote Starlink sparked controversy in Ukraine after Russia disrupted its internet services. He faced criticism from the Ukrainian government when allegedly blocked its attack on the Russian Navy by refusing to turn on Starlink in Crimea. Musk also angered the Israeli government when he proposed to give internet access to humanitarian groups in Gaza after Israel cut off the internet and besieged territory. Internet accused Starlink of aiding terrorist activities, but later reached a deal with Musk to allow Starlink in Gaza. Thoughts on that? Communication systems?
Well, first thing, I still want to know exactly how his system works, but that's maybe for another time. Aside from this, yeah. I mean, for me, I don't really believe in these personalities, so I don't really believe necessarily Musk himself is making any decisions, but is more probably, acting for certain interest groups, right? And then, to me, oftentimes it really just seems they do whatever, especially also with the current crisis in Gaza and so on, almost as if they keep it going in a way that it seems, to be a back and forth, and people can be contentious, and people have yet another reason to not like each other. Yeah, that's what many of these reports look like to me.
Do you know about Echo 1 and Echo 2?
No.
Echo 1 was a mylar balloon that was launched into atmosphere in order to reflect signal, right? And so for several decades, it was the brightest thing in the sky. I don't know if I can find a picture of Echo 2 sky. But essentially what you could do is you could see this dot in the sky like a bright star passing by, and so they could aim their satellites at it, and so all of a sudden they could reflect the signal off of the surface of the balloon. So if they just aimed at it and then it hit it, it would bounce the signal back down from the satellite.
Did you just say balloon?
Balloon. It's a balloon. So it's they call it a satellite balloon because it's an inflatable, right? And so what they did was they got, I think it's like 280 or I forget how many strips of mylar on the ground, and then they sew it together, laminate it together, and then they inflated it. I think there's also a sheet of aluminum in between the sheets of mylar and Echo 2, so that if it got punctured, it would hold its shape anyway. And it also doesn't need nearly as much pressure at a higher altitude. It needs only like a few, like 20% or less of the amount of air for pressure, of oxygen in the balloon. So the point is, though, that if they wanted to have signal bouncing back, they needed something in the sky just to bounce it on. There's nothing in that balloon. It's just a reflective surface. But if they hit it with radio, the radio bounced back. The Russians called it the friendly Sputnik because anybody could use it, right? And because you could see it, you could guide your telescope by it. And Echo 2, they even had a homing beacon, so during the daylight, it could be, you could guide your equipment by it and get them onto the geosynchronous system that was following. But really, it was an echo synchronous system. So kind of interesting. But the other thing is they weren't sure if it would work at first. So, the idea of launching a balloon seemed kind of expensive without any proof. So they used all of the power they could to blast the moon, and they had signal reflecting back from the moon. So they knew that the moon could be used to reflect radio. And so from that...
To what efficiency does that work? Or to what effectiveness?
You have to be able to see the moon in the sky, and, it uses far more energy, but not as much as you'd think, right? So it can be done. It's being done. And it, especially in natural circumstances, happens all the time. Like when you see the moon.
So people are receiving communication from the moon.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just the idea of Echo 2 is that there are more of these satellites, and they don't all have to be reflective. Like they could be virtually invisible. We just chose to use the mylar one so that it could be seen easier by satellites that are trying to track it. So like you could just aim the thing at it, but there's no reason why you couldn't just have a satellite balloon that's like it doesn't have to be at a very high altitude, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be one device. It could be a chain of devices, and they could they could have technology on them. There's no reason they don't have to have technology on them. It's just that the most important thing really is that they reflect whatever hits them has to come back down, right? So as long as it can be used to reflect signal. And so this is another benefit of the Chinese synthetic lunar project to build new moons, is it can be used to broadcast, they say,
They really have a project to build new moons. I never heard about this. Okay.
Really? The
right. No,
Chinese new moons, new moon project, launch, fake moon. How about that? There you go. Fake moon. Chinese city wants to launch fake moon to illuminate its streets. Proposed satellite would cover 6 to 50 mile wide stretch of Chengdu with light 8 times brighter than that of the real moon. It will look like a moon. They want to launch 20 or 30 of these across China in different cities, so that they could have their own moons that they could turn on whenever they wanted to.
set to be the first man-made moon focus point, right? And then there'll be more if this works out. But they're all worried about what it could do to nature. Like Chinese fake moons could. I mean, a lot of animals are nocturnal. They live based on the moon. It could mess with menstrual cycles. We have no idea like what's going to happen with this. So they're kind of concerned. They're going to test it out on one city and see what happens to the people there. But it should make it like,
yeah, because my next question would have been like, how are they going to construct it? Is it going to be like a sphere? So is it going to be a disc?
I think it's supposed to be
is it going to be a hologram?
I think it's supposed to be a small sphere balloon, similar, not that small, but like maybe 90 to 150 feet or 300 feet, you know, like a big inflatable that they can aim. And it will have, but it'll also have the printing on the outside of it to look more like the actual moon. They want it to look like the moon. So it'll be kind of a falsy. The way they have these trees that are antennas, right? So that's gonna be a thing.
Yes, yeah, more of the usual insanity, I guess, but
I guess
fun.
so. Just the idea then that like Elon Musk, it doesn't really matter like whether or not he has antennas in these things, how high up they are, you know, if things are just reflecting the signal, none of it matters so long as people are getting access to each other's signal. So if in Gaza they're able to send data back and forth and communicate information, they're getting onto the internet, then like that's interesting because he's got something that they're having a hard time keeping from people, right? Like it's a humanitarian aid, but it's also something that like control of information is very important in wartime. So a lot of the people that would be, you know, trying to destroy Gaza or Hamas, you know, they're going to want to control that information. And so by giving people access to it, it's actually a pretty good thing, probably. It just seems like more information is better. And it probably is also more dangerous, though.
Yeah, more information, definitely better and more dangerous.
More dangerous
for many parties involved. So if you want, we can go on. It's like on a side way, but we are still with the power structures. So I'm not sure if I had shared this before. The research by you don't need to play it, just to show the title. This is Sean Ross. He's actually been recommended to me on several videos I made with David. People said, "Oh, check it out. He makes interesting research." I'm not going to comment too much on all he says. I'm just going to say it's an interesting angle. Anybody interested in, let's say, perspectives you maybe haven't heard before? Oh, nice. That's nice. They put these things there now. I love it. Yeah, it's so nice. And it's a huge series, and you know, people can agree with what he says or not, but I think there's a few very interesting points he brings up, especially also talking about the history of Switzerland. Of course, if we go farther than 100 years, who knows what really happened, but he's pointing out a few interesting things, and he uses interesting terms. He's also talking about the pharaonic system, and he's showing different connections, and he's also explaining how certain orders seem to have been instrumental in orchestrating certain historical events and wars and making sure that the desired outcome is created, even though it seems there are really two parties struggling. But then through vehicles, as he explains, like Switzerland, you can simply make sure, for example, that you, as it happened, right, take in all the resources of Europe, you completely repopulate and force migrations and massacre people and so on. But yeah, he's showing an angle that I think.
Do they have that warning on my video too?
Seen.
They must, right? Like History Revised, is that?
That's a good question. Should be new if they tagged old videos, maybe.
How far do I have to go to find
just go on your popular videos. They should be there. Videos and then popular.
Let's just click on that one. No warning. Sweet, I win. Cool. Yes! Excuse me. Anyway.
Yes. So
that's pretty based, right? Come on. That's cool.
It's good. Yeah, that's
pretty good.
You know, it's like in the, how did they say, in East Germany or something, or whenever they talk about censorship, you just have to create things in a way that it's not labeled as such, right? It's just
East
an allegory.
Beautiful it's just people, all right?
Metaphysical. Of course they are. You know,
dude,
because
they were pro-nudist, bro. They were pro-nudist, East Germans.
That's another part. So what he also did is, on his most popular video, he actually went to one of these castles of darkness or something, where supposedly, you know, whatever rituals are occurring and all of this. So he also is going around by himself apparently even living in the forest in a tent for years, which seems pretty crazy to me, but some people really are on a mission. So anyhow,
Pretty good
without
living in a tent.
necessarily agreeing or not with all the things he says, I can highly recommend to anyone who likes deep research on these things to gain another perspective for different ideas.
I'm looking forward
can
to
be
watching
correlated.
this because I've been wanting to like talk about the Livonian Empire for a while and the Livonian Confederacy of Switzerland and Bern, and I think it's going to be interesting to see more of that perspective. I just saw Johnny Harris do the dumbest video he's ever done, which was really sad because like, dude, this freaking guy is just so. How do you get like? Oh, sorry. I just want to pause it for a second. This freaking guy, all right? Like I like have a lot of love in my heart, you know? Like I want to love Johnny Harris. I want to love everybody. But he starts out with this amazing video. It starts so great. Like it's like a math equation that just goes off the rails when he stops. He doesn't do a double negative or something. So he's looking at Switzerland. And he's like, look, they have so many guns. They got tons of guns. Look how many guns they got in Switzerland. It's amazing. And they all know how to use their guns. And he's a Swissophile. Swissophile, is that what you call it? Where you're like obsessed with Switzerland? Like that happens. I was like that for a while. And this is how it happens. I was 13. I was reading, and that's all I knew, right? I was on the internet and I was reading about Switzerland, and if you read it on paper, it looks amazing. If you read the Soviet Constitution, it looks amazing, But then you start meeting real Swiss people, and don't get me wrong, I also love Swiss people. But if you've been and you've seen Switzerland, you start to understand Switzerland, it's not as amazing as you think it is. It's pretty great, but there's some issues, and even in the things that you think were so great, it's kind of like how the Boy Scouts don't exist anymore. Switzerland's gotten rid of a lot of things. They have a whole new constitution since 20 years ago. It's not what it was, and they're going to create little Johnny Harrises. That's the future of Switzerland. But they're trying really hard to train people.
Just as one side information, what's really interesting, of course, this is also part of what Sean Ross discusses. Many of the elite and prime minister children, apparently even of Putin and so on, they are, or the most famous example, of course, is Kim Jong-un, where they showed in every documentary that he's been in Switzerland.
How about Julian Casablancas from The Strokes? How about Jodie Foster? Like a lot of people spend a lot of time in their youth in Switzerland. It's a good place to spend your youth. It's a safe place to spend your youth. It's natural.
Just as one particular idea about the education there, what I know from someone who researched this firsthand, that actually up till 1990, I think, they had their own way of education, which is maybe partially why so many people, wanted their children there. Also, almost all Swiss people sent their children to public school. Like they knew it was the best.
Yeah.
And then from around 1990, the UN got involved with some kind of interesting directives. And then it all went downhill. I guess the elite is still going there, but probably only, to particular schools.
More private
or to
schools.
Private ones.
Or look, smaller communities, they have charter schools in Switzerland too. But everything changed in 2000 because of the way the military works and everything else. The point is that he says, look, why can't we be more like Switzerland? And then he doesn't know what's changed in Switzerland and that that Switzerland's becoming more like us because they are economically involved in imperialism. Okay, and he doesn't really talk about Davos, and it's kind of ironic. But
okay,
the next thing he does
with all the banks they have and so on?
Right, he just won't talk about it. But what he does talk about is like, well, America is not like Switzerland. So Switzerland hasn't been in a war in a long time, almost ever, and so they're super cool.
Yeah,
but America's bad because it decided, we had the rules that we're gonna have well-regulated militias to defend everything, but then we became imperial.
Okay, let me put it differently. Are you going to defecate in your own backyard? Probably not, right?
That's the Monroe document, the Monroe Doctrine, arguably. So the idea that we'd have a well-regulated militia means that everyone, like the reason we have public schools, is just so that you can make your citizens you buy them guns with tax money, you train them how to use those guns, and you make sure that they're ready to protect against invaders or a government that isn't the real government, because that's the idea. You have checks and balances, you have new governments.
Of course, it's a perfect idea. The only issue or question is if people are able to recognize whether or not that is the case. Because in the example of Switzerland, I would actually say Austria is definitely not in the same league, but it also seems in some way similar because of... Well, yeah, there is conscription, but it's nowhere near, I guess, as I don't know, as
Ubiquitous.
ingrained as in Switzerland. It's ubiquitous, but I don't think it's the same culture. Let's say here it's because also here you can just do civil service. I'm not sure how it is in Switzerland
I
if you can
think that
even
you can
choose.
do. I think you can do that now. That's what's changed. That's one of the things I'm
All
worried
right.
about. Yeah, it's like
Well, but then the other thing is, of course, you could say, how do you build? It's like a brand. If you really start seeing, nations just like corporations or any attention-grabbing brand and a talisman, then of course Switzerland has the best position for being known as the most, neutral, secure place. And just one simple example with Proton Mail, which I'm sure many people know of. They, I guess, a few years ago, then just said, okay, we're just going to give up all this data for when the Canadian trucker protests happened. Their business accounts were canceled and all of that. And of course, I can always put a nice mountain there, a Swiss logo, say it's hosted in Switzerland, it's so secure, but it's for nothing. And even in 2015 or something, they changed laws. I mean, anyhow, usually only elite would profit from this, but now they are also doing tax exchange information with all European Union countries. So even here where you would say, let's say in the most noble way, you stumble across some money and you want to keep it safe or whatever, you can't even benefit from that anymore. So many of the USPs, I think, are not there anymore. But overall, I guess they keep a pretty high living standard and a calm place because, also if you want to organize somewhere, you want a calm place and a place where people don't rebel, a place where people are happy because they earn a lot more money, all of that, right?
right.
So,
But America had, aspired to be like classic Switzerland, and then we became imperial. And so with
even that, where that idea came from, is it an official tenet? Because that would be interesting. If we consider the potential
to be like the Livonians?
behind the real foundation of Switzerland, and then if we say America was modeled after that, or some founding fathers,
it's a bit
or
of both. So the
was into
Livonian
it.
Empire comes before the United States, but the Swiss Constitution of 1850 comes after the Federalist United States Constitution, and it's a confederated constitution. So the Swiss Constitution is far more like the original 1776 Constitution and the South Confederates Constitution, which allowed, like, nobody in Switzerland needs to know who the president of Switzerland is because he has so little power. All they do is connect the different governors of each district or parish, right? So Switzerland's far more confederated. It's not federalized in the same sense. But at the end of the day, it's becoming more federalized because the federal government wants to have more power. And so that it's in the last 20 years, Switzerland's felt it's important to become more federalized, which is really sad because it's changed the entire course of history. And it's exactly why the United States created a stronger military. When the United States became aware that there were other people in the Western Hemisphere, like the French, that were coming, it became more and more important to build up those militias into a well-regulated army. And that army had the president as the commander-in-chief. And we stopped thinking of militias. And so we kind of don't even have militias anymore. Right, and because it used to be that the government supplied that was a positive government.
Yeah, well, if you have them now, you are labeled a terrorist organization in the US, more or less. No?
Yeah, or a gang. A gang, it used to be intel terrorism. So they used to say, like, this group of Irishmen, this group of Russians, this group of Italians, this group of blacks, they're a gang because they're local community that is defending their own community, and eventually we associate it only with the most violent crimes, organized crime. But that's not the way gangs were supposed to be. That's not the way vigilantes were supposed to be. That's not the way militias are in other places around the world. So if we had well-regulated militias, then we would lead back into the system that the Swiss have. And so I just found it really sad because he explains this, he gets to that point, and then Johnny Harris says, and because of that, we can never have militias again, essentially. Like, he's like, because of the fact that the militias are gone now, and we have this strong, Atlanticist power imperial government, then we can't have militias. And I just don't understand that logic. It's like, isn't the whole point then that because that exists, we ought to and need to? I don't know. It just seems so strange to me that he would go the opposite direction.
What's strange to me, if we talk about state and power and guns and force, even this basic concept of the monopoly of force of the state, to me is, I mean, I don't know.
Very strange.
Very strange, to say the least.
It seems like the militia is trying to solve that problem, which is why they dismantled that idea.
because then all of a sudden you're saying that the state has licensed well-regulated militias to have that authority as long as due process is considered. And that's great because that solves every problem. That solves police brutality, that solves gang violence, that solves it all. But it's just they couldn't control it at that point, and it could be used to like at any point it could be, and this is Jefferson idea, it could be used to save Washington D.C. From itself or something. The sept écoles étaient édifiées en what's this about? What's this from? The Rothschild.
I don't know. I don't know. This is just the other video from Sean Ross, just to show this is his most popular video where he's showing a castle. So here it says this school was built in 1887. I guess on the costs of the state and the commune, with the accord of whoever that exactly means, Monsieur Rothschild, and his son, the Baron Arthur Rothschild.
Aw, family. That's nice. Sticks out for sure. So, I mean, this is a pretty old building.
Yeah, also interesting how, all these old buildings are, I would almost want to say are owned by the same token families, or the same, actors, let's say. Almost as if they found them all at once and were like, oh, quickly, we need a new history for that. Oh, don't worry. Our family owned it for 500 years or whatever we put on the label.
Yeah. So it does look like a church, right? Like these windows.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The red one. It looks like Elden Ring.
Very old church, like 12th century style church. Could be faked, I guess. I mean, if you really wanted to.
Or even if it's not, you just put a plate on it, not to raise any suspicions as to who could have built it. Yeah. Oh, but it's interesting symbolism, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Triple moons. Wild man in the kilt. Yeah, pretty sweet. We gotta get one of these places.
For sure.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so one more thing related to what he's saying about, you can open up the last link I sent. Just another thing to consider. It's actually something that's, perfectly public, I guess, even to this day, right? And Sean Ross gets into it as apparently different important state actors of apparently opposing parties in the last century or whatever already had been members here or affiliated, which again would propose the idea that those apparent oppositions between states are at a certain level play acting, and then certain people are involved in certain clubs, and then that's why they always meet and everyone's laughing, even though supposedly they should be fighting or something. Or sometimes it seems to me historically where very strange decisions are being made, where it almost seems as if even though one power could have won or something, they then make decisions to again recreate a cycle of violence, as exemplified, I would say, by the current crisis as well. And here, without even knowing or saying too much about it, all I would like to suggest is read what it says. It says, "On y soit qui mal y pense" is the motto they have. And it basically means shame on those who think bad of it. Or shame be whoever thinks ill of it. And I mean, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, right? Because it seems so simple, but it's also such a direct curse,
Yes, like no one look here, anyone who thinks anything bad, it's like, yeah.
Brutal. Oh, man. Order of the Garter. So, St. George. Someone brought up The Boy and the Heron yesterday. And I was thinking of St. George because this new movie about this boy who meets this freaking, like, these terrifying dragons. Like, they're birds, but birds or dinosaurs or dragons, So it just seems like that's the whole point of the film that they're trying to make the point of. And it seems like a continuing...
They make the point that, the birds are dragons?
Well, it is, because they are. Like, they're talking... It's a talking giant dinosaur, That's what it is. It's just the more realistic dragon movie, Boy and the Heron. He's dealing with actual dragons, like the more real, like the kind that King George probably dealt with, like terrifying, lizard feathered beasts kind of thing that are huge that we've made extinct, right? Or for the most part, because we've wiped out most of
This is the new Miyazaki movie. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he talks about things from a level that's like so real that they seem like a fantasy. Like because we're so
he has to
disconnected
know
from reality.
something because with all those movies he made, I'd suggest it's not random what he's putting out.
Absolutely, yeah. And then that castle in the background. Look at that, man. Same castle. Let me see. I also had Swiss love their guns, global trade to drop 5% this year amid geopolitical headwinds. I think we're going to see a lot more isolationism in 2024, ironically. Like, certain things are going to still trade, but we're going to see, like, certain independently made products emerge in places, and you're going to see more. It's already starting to happen. Like,
Well, I'm wondering, did the whole supply chain shock with the sea stuff those past years, did it really distribute supply chains more now? Because people had been talking about it, and businesses were like, oh, maybe we should actually be somewhat resilient and not need to ship everything around the planet 5 times.
I mean, the irony is it's no, because it's still happening, and like even if you don't like, so you can't buy a Huawei TV in the United States.
They just said, oh, we're gonna move all the factories to Vietnam now, as we discussed, right?
Well, there's two things. One is like either you now like put the thing in the box in Vietnam, or you take the thing out of the box in Canada. Like it doesn't really matter, because like if you don't have the law in Canada or Mexico, like or Chile or anywhere along the West Coast, all of a sudden it becomes way easier to like transport these things. Now you can't sell them very easily. Like it's hard to, you can't sell a Huawei television in the United States legally. So there's that, I guess. But I mean, if someone wants one, they can get one, you know? So because it's only a few hundred miles away at any point, because it's already here. It's not that China can't ship to the West Coast. It's just they're saying they don't want you to ship to Long Beach. Okay, so then you go to Canada or Mexico. It's not a huge deal. So, and it's not just like the TVs or something like that.
Are you saying it's banned or what?
Yeah, Huawei products are banned in the United States.
Really, like wholesale? Because I thought it's only because of routers or something. Okay, well, I
No,
mean, by now
it's
everything is a
illegal-
router.
it's
They
illegal-
ship probably
it's a-
everything has a router in it.
It's illegal theoretically to buy Huawei products or to sell. It's illegal to sell them. I forget how this works. You can't import them or sell them, but like people can still buy them in ways. Like there's ways that they can happen. Without official support from
Is there any reason to
carriers-
get any of those phones without jailbreaking them anyhow? I'm just asking.
I don't think so. But like in the future, who knows? Like the thing is, as this starts to happen, it could get to that point. There already are examples of this, like the Russian computers, the Spectre computers that they don't sell in the West. Those chips are really fascinating and
Really?
powerful.
Can you show them? I haven't heard.
Russian computer.
Since we got the macroelectronics store today, we can go through all the architectures available.
Let me just make
Or
sure I got
at least the known ones.
Is that the right name? Spark? Is it Spark or something like that? I hope I got the name right. Russian computer.
It's funny, you say Russian and all it shows is Soviet Union.
It's been a minute since I looked at it. I thought it was called Spectre, but I know it's like James Bond or something like that. But there's Russian computer chip PCU microprocessors. There we go. Spark. There we go. The Spark. The MCST Sparks. Oh, okay. So Spark, scalable processor architectures, reduced instruction set computer RISC instruction set architecture originally developed by Sun Microsystems. It was its design was strongly influenced by the experimental Berkeley RISC system developed in the early 1980s. Okay. And there's several different Soviet-esque Spark systems that they built on the Solaris system. So Solaris was the most powerful computer for a minute. And so there's probably reasons why this makes a lot of sense to build a Spark 64-bit system. I think the main reason is because if you can have the correct RISC, superscalar RISC architecture, like if you know what's going to happen, then you can use this thing to run also in expansion with other chips, other systems for it. So this system should, and I think it does, if the intention is run anything. Like it can take IBM stuff, it can take AMD stuff, it could take anything, and it could process it, but also that other things can't process what it can process because it's its own system, so it makes it really difficult to emulate without really powerful systems. So you kind of have to build one or have one yourself in order to even interact with it, which is what keeps like the Russian system safe. But yeah, it's not originally like a Soviet design. It's from Silicon Valley. It's from the Sun Microsystems what do you call that, like Sun workstation. Let me just see. So Microsystems workstation, sunsystem.com. I forget
And
the
just
name.
as we're on this note, I just had met someone working at an ISP, at a small ISP,
Spark workstation.
and had some interesting stories also that they use highly custom computers like for the main servers, and that at least for that locally as ISP, they actually do uphold net neutrality. They don't inspect your packets or anything, and they only give out your MAC address
Who does
if there
this?
is an actual court order, like a small ISP in Spain.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I met someone who told me these stories because I was asking, like, because you never know. Same time, you could have people sitting there, being bored or something, seeing if they can get your passwords or whatever. But yeah, at least some of those are legit, and there's no one spying on you, at least on a local level. But he also said, of course, then it goes up. The next level is Telefonica in Spain, and they then, of course, control the in-out ports. And they, of course, even a small ISP doesn't know if the higher ISP may be watching, inspecting packets or whatever, or just throttling certain traffic and all of that, which, of course, I guess in China is very popular to do. Take me down the Order of the Garter.
Oh, let's see. All right, buckle up into the murky waters, the Order of the Garter conspiracy theories. Garter's origins. Founding myth. Legend has it a garter belonged to Joan, the Countess of Salisbury. It fell off during a dance at the court ball. King Edward III retrieved it, and with a chivalrous flourish declared, Oni sweet. Say it for me again. Oni sweet.
Oni soit qui mal y pense.
I like it. Shame on Oni soit qui mal y pense. Shame on him who thinks evil of it. This supposedly inspired the founding of the order in 1348. However, some believe this is a later embellishment to legitimize a more sinister origin, hidden agendas, Illuminati connections. Some conspiracy theorists link the Garter to the Illuminati, a purported secret society seeking global control. They point to symbols like the blue velvet robes and the garter itself, a loop symbolizing a cyclical control as evidence. Pagan rituals. Others see the order's rituals, like the annual Garter Day procession, as disguised pagan ceremonies. They interpret the black velvet as a symbol of mourning and the garter as a fertility symbol. Bloodlines and power. Some believe that the order is a front for a centuries-old cabal of aristocratic families manipulating world events from the shadows. They point to the exclusive membership and emphasis on lineage as evidence. Deeper down the rabbit hole, Knights Templar connections. Some see the Garter as a continuation of the Knights Templar, a medieval order disbanded after accusations of heresy and financial impropriety. They believe that the order inherited Templar secrets and rituals. Rosicrucian links. Others connect the Garters to the Rosicrucians, a purported secret society focused on the mystical knowledge. They interpret the order's symbols and rituals as encoded Rosicrucian messages. Remember, these are just a few rabbit holes to explore. It's important to approach them with a critical eye. Additional resources: Shame and Honor, A Vulgar History of the Order of the Garter by Stephanie Trigg. The Order of the Garter, 650 Years by Peter Begant and Hubert Cheshire. And Wikipedia articles on the Order of the Garter. Course.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't trust AI on anything at this point, the centralized one
Shame and
especially,
Honor,
but
right? Wouldn't you read a book called Shame and Honor? You would. You'd read a
seems
book
not
called-
completely useless. So
I love trig. I love trigonometry. So, what's this all about? Make it stop. Keep talking while I make that
ring
sound.
ring. Yes. So I have never heard of this idea. All it makes me think of is a different book which is called A Distant Mirror by Barbara W. Tuchman. highly interesting historical exploration, but highly questionable with what I understand now, whether any of it is accurate, especially because the book is very popular. So I have no idea. I have never seen this book. I don't know as to what extent it's exploring
title's
alternative
nice, right?
angles. Yeah.
Oy.
Yeah, but at least from some of the links that the AI gave or ideas, it's not completely useless. So
Right.
that's cool.
Yeah,
I'm
good
impressed,
job,
I have to
AI.
say.
I like
Yeah,
it.
for real.
Yeah, good job. Infowars, was there something that I wanted?
Oh yeah, right. If you want to bring out that picture where Tucker Carlson and
Oh
who
yeah,
else?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right. That's what it was. Tucker.
And only because it's so obvious, because I'm like, why? Aside from the fact that I would love there to be a strong, completely 100% pure, big,
Oh wait,
how
wait.
should I say?
That's
Yes.
Represents our love for the music.
Oh.
The stage represents our love for the music. The stage, our love for the music. The stage.
It's the future of AI techno.
This is our love for the music.
If you find it, post it.
Represents our love for the music. The stage represents our love.
There it is.
For the music.
Good job, Eddie.
Our love for the music. The stage. This is our love for the music.
Dude, I love this 60s AI. But a little bit of that 80s. A little bit of new wave in there now. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum.
I sent the link. Maybe it
well,
helps.
Is this not it?
Yeah, it is, but I sent the link with the explanations. Maybe it's there.
Oh,
I just
okay.
quickly found it.
Bum, bum,
We
bum.
love the state. We do not tolerate hate. Our love represents the state. Through our love of the music, it's our fate. The state, our love for the music. State, the state. This is our love for the music. The state represents our love for the music. State, the state represents our love for the music. The state, our love for the music. The state, this is our love for the music.
I don't see the exact correlation on this one.
Where'd it go? Right here. Yeah, you know what? You know what this actually looks like? It looks like the Mormon handshake.
Just a place, but a way of life. Our love for the state is not just fate. It's a choice we make to keep
That one, and then
The state represents our love for the music. State represents our love for the music. The state, our love for the music. The state, this is our love for the music.
Right, exactly. This one. Oh,
Yeah.
Go back, please. That's the one that I knew existed, let's say, but it's not on this list we just showed.
Cause
That
it's for
could be
the
one.
Mormons, cause it's for the Mormons.
Well, that's even better, no? Who knows?
Good job, Joseph Smith. You took all the best sigils and all the most fancy magic from King James. Didn't you, boy? Didn't you?
The state represents our love for the music. State represents our love for the music. The state, our love for the music. The state, this is our love for the music.
Okay, I feel better now. That was cool. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And actually, that's pretty cool. Because that's the Mormon one. And the
Yeah, and I mean,
Mormon
who
ones are the
knows?
good
Maybe
ones.
it was accidental. Maybe it happens that when I give
Oh
someone a
yeah,
hand,
if
it's
you
just,
put the little thing, yeah, it's weird, right?
just in this case, I'm curious as whether to someone will ask
Brother,
him
is
about
it
it
a
and
sign?
what he
It
would
is.
say.
Does the sign have a name? It does, brother. What I
Yeah.
like about that though is it's the order of Melchizedek is the symbol for Melchizedek's kind of like Enochian, and it's interesting trying to find like the roots of Melchizedek. We've talked a bit about him on the show, but we should do like a deep dive another time. Just the point is the one who's given the right to collect tithing and taxes. So that's why people are so interested in the order of Melchizedek, because to be able to take taxes rather than give taxes,
Yeah, the
that's
wet
their
dream, right? In the
it's a
pharaonic
it's a
system, yeah.
pharaonic
I want to
dream.
be part of the controllers. I don't want to be part of the cattle, yeah.
All
Well,
right, I'll catch up. Hold on. Let's get to the archives. Now, you just pulled
so
up
yeah,
this
so
book.
this is just, that's not a book, and we don't even have to go through it. I just wanted to show this
What
is
is
the
this, the
release of
Nexium
the
court data? No. Come
no,
on.
it's the release of the Pfizer documents. I just wanted to show anyone who wants to look
Same
into
idea.
it. It's now public. I don't even have to comment on this.
Sweet.
And the next thing we got, right, it was this Vice documentary. Well, what to say, you know? It's like, yeah.
Oh man, this is the part of the video that's gonna get us a few days. Okay. All
No, you
right.
think no? Why? It's
Gosh.
public. This is like this should be on. I mean, maybe it's not on CNN.
How the mafia took control of Italian food. Yeah, okay.
This is on Vice. This can't be contentious. I was just like, oh, I'm surprised there is a new Vice documentary, and it's fun to watch always. You
People
know,
are so anti-mafia. It makes me sad sometimes. I don't know. I don't know what to say. But the thing is, you can pretty much find out where. I remember this woman was kidnapped, and they knew where she was because they found like what pasta she was eating, and they knew exactly where in Italy she'd been. So like, it's kind of like interesting how unique food is in the Mediterranean, in Italy, Croatia, Greece, and all that. Like, you could literally, you could figure out what village that someone's from or what recipes. And then in the last few years, there's been all these old ladies who have feminist daughters who aren't learning how to cook, so they're like releasing their family secret recipes onto YouTube before they die, right? So yeah, Italy's going down, but like the mafia trying to save this kind of food because this is their generational heritage. They care
I
about
mean,
it.
honestly, I don't
sorry.
even know. No. I don't even know what angle they're having. It seems authentic enough, but you never know. You know, in a population of millions of people, you can always pick stories and angles that make it look a certain way. Can't vouch for that. I just said it's nicely
It just
done.
sucks when a word becomes like a pejorative. Like, it's one thing if they came up with like a racist term to call Italians. I get that. People are rude and they hate each other and they're different. But to take the actual term mafia and to make it mean what they have made it mean in America, like, is just so disgusting because it's not what it is. And Italy's had, for centuries, generational interest in its governance. Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing. The idea that we have a better government.
Let me just
now.
suggest you have the very. I love your line of thinking, Andreas. You have the same patterns everywhere, and even in the small state of Austria, and I'm sure in the US, it's obvious. Similar even with the Kennedys or whatever. It's obvious there are aristocratic, supposedly Republican Democratic families.
I just don't like that term either because they're generationally invested. If you become aristocratic by being 5 generations in a town.
The problem is, am I generationally invested in the uplifting and benefit of the land and the peoples, or am I generationally invested in siphoning off of them? That's my.
I would argue that for the most part, you care about the uplifting of you care about grosser mercantilism unless you don't really own the place you live. So the mafia was doing really good service for a lot of people for centuries in Italy, and it wasn't until they got to the United States in maybe 4 generations that they really, after the 30s and 40s, right? Because in the 30s and 40s, the prohibition happens. And so the prohibition starts to be associated with the mafia. But before that, they're not associated necessarily with anything that's out of the ordinary. They have
also
music, dance shows.
How contrived was the prohibition even? Because doing that and not make, as a state actor and not...
Right. Well, we wouldn't have Kennedy.
On the screen. No, but just like it not being obvious that this would cause a huge ruckus and a huge black market.
Well, it was a monopoly. Like, we wouldn't have had Kennedy only could become president because of the millions of dollars, $8 million or more, that his dad invested in the election from prohibition money he had from being the only one in Canada, the Fitzgerald line, that could bring Scotch into the United States legally or somewhat legally licensed.
Really?
So I mean,
oh my god. Okay, so, well, there you go.
So it's like everything comes around, like, and so that's the Irish mafia, but the Irish mob is not a mafia. You know, it's a mob. And so it was associated with the porters, and the porters were the people who brought barrels from ships. All right. And so this is like this is mercantile class from the boatsmen that, I mean, this is how these things build, right? And then they become these like men's groups. How do I get my son in, like them dowry, marrying? And these people continue to have this job when they move to the United States, right? And then those jobs become river jobs, and those river jobs become train jobs. And so eventually they just become ubiquitous, that they're moving material, and then those people become teamsters, and they're moving what falls off the backs of trucks, and it just kind of evolves, right? But with the Sicilians, like, they didn't own their property anymore. They came from Nouveau France, like they were living in, parts of Louisiana or New Louisiana, because that's how they came to the United States. All of a sudden, they're in a territory that's been conquered around them, and they work with the local government as much as possible. And it isn't until like the 50s, 60s, really 50s, 60s, and 70s that we start to see the heroin problems, and the French Connection. And the French Connection really isn't that big of a problem until the 70s. But in the 70s, because there are enough people after World War II who have been hurt, and you've got tuberculosis, and you've got all kinds of reasons, there are people that are addicted to opiates, and that is the best medicine that exists at that time, arguably, for a large portion of the population, and that's coming through the mafia. And when they bust the mafia in the 70s, they don't realize what they've done. And all of a sudden, the police are selling heroin back to people because there's none in the streets. They took it all. And so it becomes really important to supplement people who are dying because they don't know how to handle this all of a sudden, this and withdraw. And more heroin starts to emerge because of the French Connection. But before that, it wasn't as huge of a problem, right? So... all right. The other thing with the mafia is that because they didn't own their own property, they no longer cared about their citizens. So if you have your own generational investment in a place, you think of your community as your children.
Domain. Yes,
your domain. Your domain. You think of your domain as your community of children. Yeah. But your domain. So you if it is your domain, you protect your domain. And when it's not your domain, which is what happened, they're like, oh, this is New York. Oh, well, that's a different borough. Oh, where there's a bunch of blacks who live there, right? They started doing this, and they started making excuses to not care about people, which allowed them to allow in drugs, which is the mafia would have never been okay with drugs originally, because you don't give drugs to children. Even if you don't respect these people as equals, you expect them as children, right? So it's something that only happened because they lost connection with the land itself. And that's exactly what happens to any policing or governance power.
Well, any tribal structure, anything that could ever be separate from a pharaonic system was corrupted in the very same way, I would suggest.
God, that's how
falling
Tina
of
Turner.
morality, and yeah,
that's how what happened to that's what happened to Tina Turner. I mean,
so I always love bringing up this channel. I showed him before because the guy is so incredibly funny, and as I said before, I believe he's true more often than even I would like to admit. And he's always doing this great. I mean, this is what I initially knew him from because it was the most funny thing. He talks about many other things, but also these transvestigations.
Is that what this is? I thought he was going to say that she didn't really die, and at one point she was like the president of South Africa. I don't know. Keep going.
No,
maybe
it's
both.
It's just about her gender, I guess. But on that note, I mean, anyone interested can just look it up. He's doing many other videos like this. The very last one I sent is interesting. It's by Megan Fox because it's not a commentary.
Is there any pictures that go with this? He just says Tina Turner's a dude, and that's it. Okay.
No. Usually he's showing them in different ways. He's showing different pictures. Of course, there is also a, let's say, body type analysis that can be made. I'm not sure if that's included in this video.
Yeah, but she did a lot of crack. You got to understand how crack changes.
That's always the excuse for all of them. No?
Oh, that's always the excuse. I don't know.
No, is it? Is it not?
Crack.
They can't afford better drugs. Come on,
crack's,
can't be serious.
Cracks. I'm not gonna elaborate, but I can, in their defense, understand.
So we can round off the topic just on this last thing. I believe, I hope this should not be restricted, that you should be able to play it.
TMZ.
TMZ.
I can sort of, I was on TMZ one time. I wonder if I could ever find that footage. It was like 2010.
And if you can't play it, I can just recommend everyone to watch it out and decide for yourself that this is a joke, because Megan Fox is being introduced. It really says in the intro moderation something along the line, oh yeah, actually just do it with the CC, it should be good.
Doppelganger.
But do it from the very start, please, because if they transcribe it, then it should be right there.
Okay, I just have to be careful because, women in the business right now making Fox with me now. How do you shake your head? Because I'm pretty sure I'm a doppelganger for Alan Alda. Ha ha ha. I'm what'd she say? I'm a whereas I do not look in the mirror and do not think you're beautiful. Do not even know I'm so painfully insecure. Like I'm on the verge of vomiting right now. I'm so horrified that I'm here and embarrassed. I'm scared. This is your first time here? Yeah, it's my first time here. I love your watching the monitor. You're looking at some echoing. God, look how gorgeous she is. Look at yourself. I really want her to boobs. These are just the most amazing boobs. Perfect. Perfect. You want her boobs.
I think Megan Fox talks about this girl.
Oh, she likes her boobs. Okay. She's Aussie Green here tonight. He does not want to be here. He doesn't want to be my date. He's a man. He has an ego. So he's watching. Maybe I think he's probably working on music. I don't think he cares. Don't think he's watching you right now. What is your diet and exercise regimen? Because I have to ask you, your body is smoking. Well, I do have a 22-inch waist.
Okay, wait. We can stop all this. Thank you, and thank you for plowing through it. Anyone really just no, but bring it back for a second.
Yeah.
Because it made no sense at all now. Yeah, and it's pretty curious. Go to the very start again.
Yeah.
Because it's in the first 5 seconds, and just let's see what the CC says. Music. Okay, I mean it does play music. There. Yeah, you see
From
it.
a hot man to one of the hottest women in the business making right now. Well, isn't that the hot man?
Well, I guess that's what they're referring to. Yes. Then Probably. It could make sense in a different way. Well, then maybe we can dispel all of it, but maybe we can, because I actually didn't catch that. Maybe then it's a completely different story.
Probably, but I don't know. Megan Fox is evil for her own reasons. I mean, if she's a dude who abandoned her kids, it's not any better, right? Isn't that the whole story? Is that she was married and left her family so she could run away with Machine Gun Kelly? And you know what? The other thing is Siddhartha had to leave his family. So let's remember, maybe Megan Fox really is the Buddha. It could be that we just don't get the importance to live a pure, unselfish life. One must count nothing as one's own in the midst of abundance. So I don't know. This also reminds me of that dude from Mr. Beast, Friend, Trans, Chris Tyson. Chris Tyson, had a wife and kid and left his wife and kid essentially. I think there's some more to the story, and hopefully the kid still sees them often, but is where's my daddy? Is what I remember reading from that. It could be out of context, but I think it's on one hand, it's that's what Megan Fox is doing, and that's what people do, and it's kind of sad. But on the other hand, maybe the kids now got people around them that aren't that way. And so you have to wonder about people that want to shield kids from data, because I don't think shielding kids from data actually helps them nearly as much as people think it does. They're keep them from being traumatized. But kids grew up around.
Well, I'm very sorry, but just seeing the developments right now, it doesn't seem as if this is working.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Some people are going to say, well, we don't want them reading to kids. It's well, then what do you want? Do you want them to be parents? Because here's a parent who's giving up on their kid because they're too immature or they're lacking in the social role that they think is necessary for being a parent or something. I mean, maybe they're doing the right thing then if they're abstaining at that point. It's too late if they have the kid, But
yeah.
Trans Megan Fox. There are a lot of trans people in Hollywood. Could be. I don't know. It's the one that's a big conspiracy. Obviously, right now people are getting into is all the celebrity presidents' wives. Because if you start looking at every president's wife,
right. I brought this up, but no more people are talking about this. I don't know.
Yeah. President's wife one is becoming pretty interesting.
And just to be sure, because maybe I want to be perfectly clear. Maybe you really dispelled it with what you just showed, because I really didn't catch that. We have to look at her more, and there's different body features that can be checked. But the most famous example, because you bring up first ladies, and
why would you have such unattractive first ladies?
Of course. No,
that's
no.
all.
That's another thing. But just to bring one very popular example, because I just heard an Austrian talk show yesterday, and they discussed who is going to win
psychopathic
in the US.
politicians
Will
only
Trump
marry
have a
ugly people?
Will Trump have a chance in the US? And then someone said, well, if he's against Joe Biden, he will win for sure. You know, that's the Austrian
Dude, he
provincial
is
view.
so high right now. Look
But
at that.
if he
Dang.
if Trump will have to run against Michelle Obama, it would be a different story. And for me, it would just be like super interesting if she actually becomes the candidate. And then maybe this becomes more popular, because I think in her case, I mean, there is historical pictures with her and Obama and all of that. And if all of that will be pulled out, if she becomes the candidate, I mean, Melania Trump is another, well, okay, let's not get into her now. But I mean, that would be huge. I don't know. Maybe people don't care anymore. Maybe that will be the big disclosure and be like, well, anyhow, everyone is trans. Anyhow, it's trendy right now. Anyhow, who cares?
Melania would be the hottest trans in the White House so far. So, like, fine. You know, like, hey, like, if you're doing the hormone treatment right, like, it's not working out. But yeah, I don't know, because, like, again, you kind of brought up that point. There's a lot of backstory there. There's even more backstory, and so for her to get in, I think it would be kind of difficult for her. I mean, they did what they needed to do by getting Biden in, because Biden was able to do the presidential pardons necessary to kind of reverse anything he was setting up to, you know, bring what he thought of as justice or something like that, right? So I don't see, what I saw was Gavin Newsom, and I'm pretty sure Gavin Newsom is going to run, and I wouldn't be surprised if Gavin Newsom was trans, right? You want to do trans investigations, go both directions. I mean,
all directions.
I'm just saying, California, I've seen a lot of trans women to men sex change that looks pretty successful, like with the testosterone. And you'll see there are people that look like this, you know, that are women. So I'm not saying that Gavin Newsom is one, but like, there's no reason he wouldn't be. Like, it's impossible. It's literally impossible to tell at this point, you know. But there's something more weird.
I'm not
about
exactly
Gavin
sure, but
Newsom
is the Adam's apple something they can fake also? I'm not sure.
No, you can grow an Adam's apple if you start taking testosterone. Yeah,
really?
Testosterone will help you grow. Yeah.
Wow.
And
okay.
So yeah, like you can female to male, transgender, hormones. Let's just make sure that I have like tools. Let me just make sure this is like moderate safety of images and stuff like that. Female to male hormone, masculine. I just saw a good one there. Like check out. Wait, no, wrong direction. Transgender. Trans man.
And just as we were on the topic in terms of potential obviousness, the one we showed up earlier from this other channel is, her name is Tina Turner. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good. All right, I'll give you that one. I don't want to show you these pictures because a lot of these are people without. A lot of them are really masculine-looking men with their shirts off, right? Because they've had mastectomies and they're showing their muscles and they have beard. And if I didn't tell you that beforehand that they were men, you would think that they were just men, you know? Like, because that's all I can really... It's really hard to find a picture of them where they don't have their shirt off, though. Like, almost all of these pictures of them... Like, in general, though, here's an example. Like, here's a feminine to male, hormone job. And this is early on. This is probably like a year or 2 years into this, right? And if they do this early enough, then they become very masculine. And so there are a lot more female to male transsexuals than people know. And a lot of them don't like to talk about it. And like, you don't necessarily know, right? Like you can have friends that live this way. Like you could have, in fact, if you live in any major city, probably met a few female to male transgender people that are probably just like very decent men that you know. I mean, like it's happened to me. So I'm saying like Gavin Newsom is, prime candidate for that kind of thing.
Okay, well, I guess on that note, we're through, unless there's anything else.
Who else is trans, Raph? Is Winnie the Pooh trans?
And as I said before, I wish it wouldn't even be a topic, but since it's obviously part of the agenda, and obviously so many more people, if they would receive, proper love and support, probably HRT would be the last thing on their mind. So just that's why it's a little bit upsetting to me. And the whole thing about, portraying something you're not and persistently claiming that, and potentially through that tricking individuals and all of that. So yeah, not a big fan of that. So
bad actors. Mark Rubio. China Tech, Meta, Nvidia, AMD chips are coming. Oh yeah, no, that wasn't really that important. Naval, Michelini.
1902. I don't know. It's yours. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it again. Found a supposedly scientific document from the 1860s, which talked about something like electroacoustic cannons. If it ever comes across or anyone heard of it, please post a link. I want to see it again. That sounded super interesting.
This is really important because it talks about like naval laws and everything, and in the Haile Selassie legal system in Ethiopia come up as an important thing in the naval miscellany. So pretty good. Amplituhedron, twistor string theory. That's something that we should go into at some point. I want to talk about the amplituhedron some more. Okay, guys, make sure you go to commency.at. Yeah, it is. It's how you run the world. So, yeah, if you check out commency.at, he's got links to all of the videos here. He also has his Oki Talks, which are open source audio recordings as well. But if you go to...
you just press on the elephant. Scroll down. It's there. Yeah, the elephant.
There's an elephant?
Yeah, on the left-hand icon. Yes. If you click on that,
this is an elephant.
It's a statue of two elephants holding a crystal ball.
I thought I saw like a beetle or something. I didn't.
Nice. Well, why not?
Scarab. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay. And actually, this is still. I have to update this link, but here is a special talk. Actually, it's cool that you show it because there is a very secret David Ewing Jr. talk. Where he talks about Bill Gates and the codes behind it. Sweet. And this is only released on this channel, so actually it's great that you show it. And anyone else, just enter Act Like You Know 26 on YouTube.
Is this super hardcore? This is some hardcore stuff here?
It's so hardcore that YouTube didn't want it, so I uploaded it. I think YouTube didn't want it, or it was made by a friend of David's, and he wasn't sure how to handle it. And I was like, here we put it. It's going to be safe. Yeah, so.
Based. All right, I'll check that out. That sounds cool. Microsoft Kabbalah codes. Well, we all knew that was true. But yeah, go to Act Like You Know 26 on YouTube so you can check out the other talks. He's got playlists here.
Yeah, and you can go on live. There you see all the Neuropas we have been streaming together that are available. It's all there. So
super based. So yeah, not bad. Oh, how about did anyone?
Yeah, let's play some music for the end, and then we can sign off.
What's the good?
This is exactly
what you sound like,
Not.
No, you don't sound Flemish. Don't worry.
Techno song. I made just an old-fashioned techno song. Just an old-fashioned techno song. I made just an old-fashioned techno song. 50 days to remember, I know the way tomorrow used to glow. Future was bright, had to be there to know. Must have been 2 or 3
good seeing ya.
And you. Thanks everyone for listening.
Let's have a good one. I'll see you at Wednesday Ultra later if you're free. Join us.
This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Recent Tartarians.
Она образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, the skin's beautiful. Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown.
Что касается энергии нано, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз. 10 в 74 степени.
That's it. That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.
you for watching Xirtus. Keep listening. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, please follow and subscribe and share and support. It really helps. Coming up next, Xirtus.
By the way, that's gone. If you didn't record that, that's gone forever. It's gone.